The scene is Hereford, Harrogate, England. The time is May 1998. In the green room for the British Association of Barbershop Singers Convention is the Big Chicken Chorus from Atlanta, Georgia, actually from Marietta, Georgia. There are 65 men who have been in Harrogate for 3 days, working with the local people, singing a couple of songs, but this is their very first performance in front of the assembled British Association of Barbershoppers. In front of the chorus stands Clay Hine. Clay Hine is about 6'6", very skinny young man who was the baritone of Fred, if you want to put him in your head. And he says, as we are getting ready, he is getting us in the green room. We're 5 minutes from the stage, 10 minutes from the stage, getting us in the right frame of mind. He glances up and he notices that on the breast of several of our members, not all, is the 5th place medal that the chorus won at the previous international in 1997. And he said, "Oh, guys, would you please take the medals off? Not everybody has them. We want to be uniform." A 6'6", 350-pound member of our chorus leaned forward and said, "I worked my butt off for that medal, and nobody is taking it off my chest." Can we identify this as a leadership problem? Now, before I tell you the rest of the story and what happened, I want to let you know that I have every single person in this room at a personal disadvantage, because I'm the only person in this room who has said good morning to everybody in the room. So in a couple of moments, I'm going to go biblical on you, sort of like Moses parting the Red Sea, and I'm going to ask you to rise, and I'm going to ask you to walk around, and I would like you to say good morning to everybody in the room. I know it's going to take a couple of moments, it's going to be kind of awkward, but here's what I want you to do. I'm going to say, "Hi, David, I'm Bill. Good morning." And when you do, I want you to look in the aisle and I want you to smile. That's all I want you to do. Everybody got it? Okay. Now, rise, my people. Walk around and say good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. So everybody say hello. Nancy, you've been around the block once or twice. Why do you think we did that? Why do you think we did it?
Well, I think it's going to open up our communication with each other. Net, eye to eye.
Okay, very good. There's got to be more to it than that. What do you think, Wes? Why did we do that? Why did we do it?
To check each other out.
Say what? Try to what?
To check each other out.
To check each other out.
You judge people as soon as you see them.
Spoken like a tall, handsome man.
I did it that way.
Larry?
You physically got us up out of our seats, so you broke our pattern
Yep.
of, "Oh, we're in here to learn." You said, "Oh, get up, move, interact," changes the dynamic of the room.
But it was not a trick. This was not an opening exercise. It's not a trick. You just participated in a very heavily researched emotional intelligence activity. It is called emotional contagion. To understand what happened, you need to understand a few facts about emotions. Number one, emotions are contagious. Number two, the leader sets the emotional climate. In every group, in every room, the leader sets this. Number three, effective leaders set a positive climate. Number four, effective leaders reduce the negative climate. That's what you were doing. By the way, emotional contagion has been written about in every major business publication. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, London Times. You can Google it. Emotional contagion boils down to people react to emotions and mirror the emotions of others. What we did in the room, whether or not you recognize it, is we raised the emotional climate in the room, did we not?
Yes.
Now let me take you back to Harrogate, England. Clay Hine could have responded to that 6'6", 350-pound lead in a number of ways, most of which would have taken the chorus off the very carefully designed ramp up to being on stage in front of these people. So, what do you think he did? Here's what he did. He turned around and walked away. He walked away for 2 minutes and literally walked around the room. 65 guys are standing there in very awkward silence because of this outburst by a rather immature man. Clay came back and stood in front of the chorus and said as follows: guys, if you have a medal on, please take it off. We're going to be on stage in 5 minutes. Just put it in your pocket and we'll all be uniform. And went on about it. I took Clay aside. Now I want you to understand something. I have been leading teams for 53 years. I have been teaching leadership for 48 years. I took Clay aside privately. I said, that was one of the most emotionally mature leadership things I've ever seen anybody do, especially in a barbershop context. I said, I'm very proud of you. He looked, he says, thank you. What do you say to that kind of phrase? But I want you to understand, what we're going to be talking about today is leadership. Very simple leadership. In the note-taking guide, it starts on page 2 where I say congratulations and thank you, because you have just become a very important person in barbershop. The chapter and the chorus leaders, whether you're in the Barbershop Harmony Society or SAI, the people who actually make the group run are you. You are the people who make your organization when the life of a barbershop chapter cannot exist without what you do behind the scenes. And whether or not you recognize it, the people that you support appreciate you even if they don't say it. Because if you weren't there, think what wouldn't happen. In every group that's represented in this room, think about what wouldn't happen. Now, this seminar is about leadership. Practical, simple leadership. Theories are wonderful things. There are literally 10,000 books on leadership available on Amazon. Literally. I've been teaching leadership for decades, and it has taken me decades to figure out what we need. Simple, practical tools that you can use when you walk out that door. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to apply them. I teach in the business community. I've been doing it for decades. But what I want to do, I've been trying for decades to figure out how to take what I know and apply it to barbershop. So I took it and I'm applying barbershop principles to barbershop examples, what we're talking about. The starting point for this seminar was the online chapter officer training that was created by the Evergreen Society, the Evergreen thing, the Evergreen District. And if you've taken it, great. If you haven't taken it, okay, because this is not dependent upon that. That was the starting point. Now, I'm going to simplify and foreshadow this course. If you want to be a better leader than you are right now, there are 2 skills that you must master. And I'm going to talk about both those skills in this course. Skill number 1 is the skill of asking questions. Skill number 2 is the skill of shutting up and listening to the answers. And I will tell you, from my experience, I was 30 years in the Navy, I was captain of a ship, I was a senior executive in business, and I have been every place you can possibly imagine in 8 choruses and 6 districts. I'm a peripatetic barbershop because I travel around a lot. Every single thing I'm going to tell you applies. It doesn't matter whether you're in SAI or in barbershop or you take it and apply it in business. The things I'm talking about are root principles, things that make sense. With me so far? Cool. Okay, our schedule for the day is we're going to spend 90 minutes in this room with me flapping my gums about leadership. We're going to take a break for lunch because I know you're going to be hungry by then. And then when we come back, the famous Nancy Kurth, for the guys who don't know Nancy, Nancy is the director of, I've got it right here, Northwest Harmony Chorus in Vancouver. She's the chair of the SAI Young Singers Foundation Advancement Committee, and she's an assistant director in Pride Portland. Did they get it right? Cool. And she's wearing yellow, just in case you didn't know that. And also Ed Gins, who is the current president of the Tacoma Barbershop Chapter, will be joining us. The 3 of us will be talking to her. Ed is going to be talking for about 10-15 minutes on how he put 30 people into his chorus personally. We call him the chorus whisperer because he has figured out how to get people interested in coming to his group. And Nancy's going to come up and spend 10-15 minutes to talk about how to build a team within your chapter. The three of us are going to sit down and we will handle any question. I've been doing this for 39 years in barbershop. And I've had, the only position I've not had in barbershop is treasurer, because you don't want me and money mixed. But I've done everything else, okay? There you go. That's where we're going. So far, so good? Cool. All right, so if you would please turn to page number 3, the one that says, let's fill in the blanks here, and we're going to answer this question. Who recognizes this guy? Marty Munson, our CEO. Marty is a leader, and what he is doing is he is absolute personification of the basic concept of leadership, which is this. One of the most difficult things to understand about leadership is that you are not what you think you are. You are what you are perceived to be by others. Think about that for a second. Marty doesn't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to lead today. No, he doesn't do that. What he does do is get up and figure out what's most important that he can focus on today for the group. Leadership, then, is an imputed quality. In other words, it's what others think about you that matters, not so much what you think. I'm going to shorthand leadership for you very quickly. If you are thinking about something that you need or you want, that's a management thought. If you're thinking about what they need or what they want, that's a leadership thought. It's a mind shift, folks. Everything we're talking about here is very subtle, but it's very real. When you go into your chapter, now let me do this for a second. When you walked in the room, I'm sorry about that, didn't quite want to go there. When you walked in this morning, Paul, you had a concept of leadership in your head. What does leadership mean to you?
It means directing others to do what needs to be done.
Directing others to do what needs to be done. John, would you agree with that?
Yes.
Works for you? Christy, how about you? Would you add anything to it?
I would say that's kind of on
It's creeping middle age, don't worry about it.
it's directing the focus to get to where you want to be.
Directing, got that? Larry?
Leadership is an attitude.
Leadership is attitude.
It's not, it's not active. Everything I've heard so far is active.
Leadership's an attitude? Interesting.
It's a concept. It's a
Okay.
expression.
Okay.
By example, it's.
Okay, I got it. James?
I would largely agree with what
What he said? Anybody else want to take a crack at it? The good news is you're all right. But did you notice the one commonality between all of them? Every single person had to pause to gather their thoughts. Here's the issue. Leadership is intensely personal. And what works for you, Janelle, may not work for Fiona. The way we use the word leadership varies by the number of people in the room. So, in order to provide us a baseline, here is the definition of leadership I want us to use in here. Leadership is the ability to influence and inspire others to achieve the results that you already envision. Influence, inspire, results. The Romans said that when Cicero, the grand orator of the Roman Senate, spoke, men marveled. But when Caesar spoke, men marched. That's the point. Without exception, leadership has a purpose, and that's to get something done. When you go into your chapter meet and you want something done, you're faced with a choice, aren't you? You can do it yourself, or you have to get it done through other people. Do I speak the truth? Let's take a very simple example. Setting up the risers. Isn't that a common, oh yeah, it's a common issue for all of us, isn't it? How do you get the risers set up? Well, I have observed, I have participated, and I have done this. You walk in, you're not being set up, so you're the one person, you start setting them up. And people stand around and say, that's really great, thanks, Bill. Have you seen this? I was doing the spying until my atrial fibrillation kicked in, and I wound up being 185, and I said, Bill, sit down, don't do this anymore. We have a team now of people who set up our risers, and they do it without asking. We have a team that takes them down, set up without asking. How that happened, I'll tell you when we get to the very last thing in our content, in our discussion today. Okay, now, we did that. Okay, Nancy, what is the difference in your mind between management and leadership?
Oh, management is process,
Okay.
and leadership is people.
In the decades I've been teaching, you're the first person who almost nailed it. I'm serious. I'm gonna give you guys a visual. I want you to think of management and leadership as a balance beam. On this end is management. Management is control, it's process, it's stuff, it's numbers. Leadership is different. Anybody here been trained as a pilot? Gone through flight training? I have known about 1,000 pilots over my career, both military and civilian. Every single one of them tells me what I'm about to say to you is correct. When you go through ground school, you are taught that as the pilot, you are the thing that injects change into the aircraft. Using the controls, you make the plane dive, make the plane climb, make the plane dive, make the plane turn, make it slip sideways. And because we're human beings, because we're adults, as we are learning these new skills, we tend to overcorrect, and pretty soon the plane is bucking like a bronco. And what you are taught to do in ground school is something that's completely counterintuitive. You are taught to let go of the controls because the plane is aerodynamically stable and will fly itself if you stop messing with it. Management is control. Leadership is letting go. Management is stuff, numbers, process, and Nancy was right. Leadership is people. The key thing about leadership is it's all about relationships. How you get stuff done through other people. The balance being part is every single one of us has a different balance point on this between management and leadership. Many of us who come from technical backgrounds, highly technical disciplines, are hardwired on management. Those of us come from the humanist side, and there are those in this room who are HR people or who are very deeply into the humanist world, are very hardwired on this side. And the balance points are different. What we need to do is find an appropriate balance between the hard skill of management and the soft skill of leadership. But in our world, in the barbershop world, we need to be heavily on the relationship side simply because these people don't work for us. We'll come back to that. So, you know what leadership is. You know the difference between management and leadership. I'm going to ask you some questions. And I want you to think about these questions. Do not answer them out loud. But if I ask a question that keys a thought, I'd like to write the thought down. When was the last time, in a barbershop world or not, that you influenced someone? You all right?
That literally is my job. Influence without authority.
Great. Understand. Please do not answer. I want them to draw their own conclusions. Thank you. Okay, so when is the last time you influenced someone? Think about it for a second. What I'm trying to get you to understand is this is not new stuff. I'm just telling you stuff that you already do. When did you influence someone in your family? Ladies, are you married? Did you influence your spouse? Guys, are you married? Did you influence your spouse? When is the last time you inspired someone? Do you have young people that look up to you? Do you have people that you work with or you're a role model? When is the last time, third question, you got something done through someone else without telling them what to do? What I'm pointing out to you is that all of us already do this. We influence, we inspire to achieve results that we envision. That's why this particular definition of leadership is so powerful. It enables us to think about what we do in a simple context. We're not weirdos. It just works. Okay, the key point of leadership, I want to talk about this. I wrestled with this concept of management and leadership in the U.S. Navy for many, many years. U.S. Navy is, just like every other Navy corporation, they say management when they mean leadership, they say leadership when they mean management. The team, there's no difference between the two. Until I read this book, On Becoming a Leader, by a chaired professor of strategy at the University of Southern California. Warren Bennis says, management is getting people to do the right thing. Leadership is getting people to want to do the right thing. And I said, oh, management is control. Look at my hand. Control. Leadership is letting go. Look at the hands. Where do you think the people on our risers would prefer their leaders to be? Over here. It requires a lot more pre-thought and effort on our part to make them want to do it, to stay there. Okay? Now, the third fill-in on your page is the key point of leadership: to get something done, to get stuff done. That's why leadership exists. It is another way of getting things done. But there is a grand secret to leadership. How many people in this room have known a natural leader in your life? A natural leader. I have, in 53 years of leading teams, I've known one natural leader. He was so good, everybody wanted to be like him, but he couldn't explain how he did it, so he sent his people to me to be trained. What I'm telling you is that leadership is a learned skill. And the grand secret of leadership is this: the very best leaders take the time to establish personal connections. Leadership is all about relationships and personal connections. How many of you have seen Nancy get stuff done if that could not be done? She just walks up and she says she sweet talks somebody and they do it. It happens all the time. That's how we get stuff done. I want you to understand, this is not new. This is the basis of how things get done. Everybody with me at this point? So far, nobody want to leave? Good. Okay. All right. As barbershop leaders, I foreshadowed this a couple of minutes ago, we have a fundamental problem. Please turn the page. The fundamental problem is that every single person in our chapter is a volunteer. Please write that down at the top of the page. That's the fill-in at the top of the page. We do not have the power to hire and fire. We do not have the power of the purse, so we can't give them financial incentives. We've got to make them, as Warren Bennis talked about, we've got to make them want to do it. Therefore, we need to have, if we push them too far, they're going to vote with their feet. And they're going to go someplace else or just quit the community completely if they have a negative experience, right? How many of you have been in an organization where you have been driven away by the attitude of the people in charge? All of us have been there. How many of you, if you're here, are in organizations where you are excited by the attitude of the people around you? Yeah, that's right. Okay? Now, the leadership skills you need are not the ones you think you need. The skills I'm going to be talking about for the remainder of our time together are really simple, fundamental things. The first skill is the ability to build trust. It is fundamental to everything that we do. Without trust, nothing can be done in the barbershop community. The second, I will tell you that there's a typo on your page. The extra line on number 3 should be, the extra line should be under number 2. So if you want to write the second skill at number 3, that would be useful to you. The second skill is the ability to communicate effectively, which means, second line, asking questions and listening to the answers. The third skill, one that will probably catch you by surprise, is the ability to flex. And I do not mean your body, Dante. I mean, yeah, I know, that's very good, man. But I mean the ability to flex your communication style, and we will talk about that. Last but not least, the skill you need is the ability to get stuff done. Okay, does this make sense? I'll get out of your way. There you go. Let's put a smile on the face. Very good. All right. Open question to everybody in the room. What do you think the biggest single problem is for leaders? Biggest single problem, bar none, across the board. Let me go. Okay. What else?
Listening.
Sorry, listening? Both good, Dante?
Knowing the right question to ask.
Man, you're getting close to it. I will tell you, the biggest problem is even more than that. As leaders, we assume trust. Because we are the leader, because I'm a nice guy, because I'm the boss, everybody's going to love me, said Louis XVI before they took his head. I want you to understand something. Let me share with you some scary, scary research that comes from the business world. Trust is not automatic. Lack of management trust, lack of trust in management is the biggest barrier to building that organization. 61% of people who work in the United States For-profit, nonprofit, and government do not believe that management tells them the truth. And only 38% of these same people trust their employers to keep their promises. Folks, these are the people who are on your risers. They are predisposed not to trust you. Let me turn this around. 2/3 of the people who are on your riser do not trust you personally unless you are doing something to build and earn their trust, because trust must be earned. Just like in business, in the barbershop world, trust has to be earned. Does this make sense? If I went around the room, we could probably have, with all the experience in the room, we could have 25 separate examples of issues where you have gained or lost trust over the years. Make sense? That's why this is so important. I want to pound the table up here. We cannot assume trust simply because we're the president, or we're the director, or we're whatever. We're the person who earns the trust. I'm going to tell a story about the guy in the back here. Dante Santos back here is a member of our chorus. He's relatively new, 18 months in barbershop. That's it. But he comes to us with a background in musical theater, and from the get-go, he has stepped up and helped us visually. Everybody knows Cindy Hansen. Everybody in the room knows who Cindy Hansen is. He became the Cindy Hansen clone when our chorus went to Harmony University last year, and as a direct result, our chorus has up-leveled, and he has earned the trust of everyone in the chorus because of what he's done, the way he's acted. That's an example of how trust can be earned. Okay? All right, turn the page. We're going to talk about some very basics here. What is trust? Trust, like leadership, is one of these really fuzzy words that is never defined. But James, we're going to define it. What is trust in your mind?
Believing that somebody is going to do what they say when they say they're going to do it.
I'll take that. Beyond, what is trust? To be able to say something and then to stay with them. What is it, Rick? What do you think? I'm sorry, is that right, Rick?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What's trust?
I'm liking both of those.
Right? They're great.
People believe that you're telling the truth.
People believe you're telling the truth. The dictionary says, and it's not up here, I'm going to read it to you. Dictionary says trust is a firm belief in the reliability, integrity, or character of a person or a group. Trust is a firm belief in the reliability, the integrity, or the character of a person or a group. Now that we've got a common understanding, here's the question that matters. What is the cost of low trust in a chorus? What is the cost of low trust in a chorus? I don't have the answers. I don't want them from you. Anybody? Sorry? Relation to what the cost is a little bit more. What do you mean?
If I don't trust you, I'm not going to build it.
Okay, that's fine. What's the cost of low trust, Larry?
High friction.
High friction.
Stuff doesn't get done.
Cost of low trust, Wes?
Turnover.
Turnover, absolutely right. Ed?
The chorus that dies.
The choruses die. Low trust, the cost is die. That's exactly right. So the question is, so what are some of the symptoms of low trust in a chorus or a chapter? Conflict. Well, I'm going to say I don't agree with that, because I think that conflict is very healthy. Because we can't, as a leader, we don't want to suppress conflict, we want to manage the conflict effectively. Yes, ma'am?
Nobody's there to sing.
Nobody's there to sing. That's a low trust issue. Give me some other, what is the symptoms of low trust, huh? What? I didn't hear it.
Nobody's there to sing or sit on the
Yeah,
right.
I've got that right. What else? Carlos?
Subterfuge. You end up with people kind of forming cliques again.
Clicks! Oh my God, I sang in the chorus for years. That was a clique chorus. There was the in crowd, the almost in the crowd, and the wannabe crowd. You know, and when I joined, they thought I was in the in crowd. I said, I don't want to be in the in crowd. So I clicked back, you know, and the cliques destroyed the fabric of the chorus. Absolutely true. What else? Give me another thing. What's the symptom of low trust? Yes, ma'am.
I think a lack of mutual respect.
Lack of mutual respect, absolutely. Manifested how? How do you see that?
Just maybe, well, my perspective is a little bit different and unique, but getting my students to listen respectfully, or,
Yeah.
you know, helping them understand that what I'm saying is really important.
Sure, okay. What age group do you teach?
Middle school.
Middle school, got it, okay, cool.
Sure
Thank you so
are,
much,
girl.
thank you so much for being here. Duncan?
Not getting the response that you, similarly, not getting the response that you want when you're asking for changes, like getting
Correct.
10% of what you're actually asking.
Okay, and, Matt?
Same, sort of jumping on the same idea, especially in our art style, that cohesion between people is super important for creating the sound. So I think without trust, you don't get the sound that the members are capable of creating.
Understand, you know, there, back to you. Yes, Nancy?
Negative body language.
There we go, negative body language. Anybody ever see this on the risers? Many of us have been out front, haven't we? Been out front of our chorus in one form or another, and you see this. You see this. And you see this. Don't we? Don't we see this stuff? What that is a symptom of low trust. It is a problem for us very simply because, it's a problem for us simply because, let's back up. It's a problem for us simply because low trust can destroy, as Ed says, the fabric of the chorus. And if that happens, the group can wither and die. I'm going to show 2 questions for you. Do not speak and answer. But if these questions resonate with you, take a couple of moments, and my gift to you is total, absolute silence. When is the last time in any group or business or chorus setting where you were allowed the time to think? This is my gift. This is my question. Is low trust a problem for you and your group? Having pondered that, here is the $64,000 question. How do you know? Okay, having effectively lowered the level of energy in the group, let's bring it back up. How do you build trust? I love this graphic because here you have 2 people flying through the air, and if this guy's angry, he's going to put his hands down, isn't it? Ever think about that? The person's flying across the trapeze. Here are some things that you can do to build trust. Number 1, by the way, I'm not going to give you a master list of techniques, of things to do. I want to give you some thoughts. Number 1 is continuity. Maintain contact, be visible, be there. If you are a chapter or a chorus leader, people are watching you from the moment you get out of your car at rehearsal. Do I speak the truth? They follow you in, they ask you questions, they are taking your time. And your visibility, your contact with them is a way to build or destroy trust. With me? Second thing you do is give a damn, excuse me ladies. Care, meet their needs, be a giver, not a taker. There is an intellectual tool called the philosopher's knife. The philosopher's knife is that tool that we all use to separate the world into these kind of people and those kind of people. Are you a giver or are you a taker? Are you a person, a glass half full kind of person or glass half empty kind of person? That's what the philosopher's knife does. Now, fundamentally, what we want in our choruses as people, we want givers. We don't want takers. So if you have somebody on your leadership or management team who is there for the specific purpose of being cool or getting the free tickets to contests, that's a person who is a taker. And that person, by the way, is already seen to be a taker by the people in the organization. organization. Isn't he or she? Good. Third, communication. Share information, ideas, and feelings. Be genuine, and most importantly, listen. This is so important, I'm going to break it out as a separate skill, but I will foreshadow and say to you, you need to over-communicate with the people who work with you, who stand on the risers with you. Don't keep secrets within your board, within your management team. Tell them anything you possibly can. In my own course, we were in the process of negotiating a new lease with a synagogue, as we moved from the church where we are to a synagogue. And we couldn't tell them about this because there is, by the way, it's coming up, if you are in the Washington, how many of you are in Washington, state of Washington? There's a law in the state of Washington that churches and synagogues and places of faith are only allowed to offer their space 50 nights per year to all groups that want to go in. 501c3 status has nothing to do with it. It's a property tax law. And the state of Washington has asserted the right that because the property tax burden of the church is not forgiven by the state, but rather shifted to the community, the state of Washington has asserted the right to tell the church who can be in their church. That's the law. And the law came before 2014, and everybody's keeping their heads down. So because of that, I didn't want to share a lot of information until we got the deal inked with the new synagogue, which almost is, except I got thrown a curve overnight, so I'm negotiating the new contract. But that's what we're doing. You got to share information, ideas, and feelings, and don't hold back. Fourth, be competent in the job you currently have. Show skill doing your job. And for God's sake, please continue to improve. I've been teaching leadership for more than 45 years, and I still learn. I always look for new ideas, new things. Nobody knows everything. So keep doing this. And I'm going to throw a curveball at you. One of the most important things is this. Beware of sarcasm or teasing. Beware of sarcasm or teasing. Many of us like to tease and have dropped a sarcastic remark. What we fail to recognize is the impact, not on the person to whom it's directed, but on the people around us who hear it. And it never goes well. So you're nodding your head, you're knowing exactly what we're talking about, aren't we? Yeah. Because this is a person that can drive a person away who will vote with their feet. So how do we lead an organization like that? So as a leader, we need to guard what we think about, what we say. When we get into communication, we'll talk about unplanned communication and the problems that come with it. Make sense to me so far? Good. Let's turn the page. And we're going to talk about communication. We're going to play a game. We're going to play a game called Wheel of Communication. And this is just like the Wheel of Fortune. Think of me as Vanna White, wrong sex, a little heavier, not as good looking, but we're going to Yeah, okay. All right, this is team number one, this is team number two. We're going to start with team number one. I'm going to ask you to give me a consonant as a group. Just yell out a consonant if you would, please.
Z.
Z. Thank you for pointing. That's team two. Give me a consonant.
Yeah.
See? I got two. What? N, did I hear? Yes, there is an N. Actually, there are two N's. Give me another consonant. You can keep going until you screw up. Huh? T. Thank you for playing. Next, team one. Give me a consonant. S, did I hear? Yes, there is an S. T.
You just said
You're celebrating.
What in team T? R. Wait on the ball there, David. R. There is an R. Yes, there is. That's what
C.
G.
T.
G.
There is
We
one
have not
G.
picked T a third time.
Fool us twice.
Keep going.
L.
No. M. There is an M.
I.
You have to buy the vowels. You have to bribe your Yeah, you want an I, yeah, there's a couple I's.
They give you $1.
There you go.
Oh.
That's a couple.
I said, John, I meant one, sorry about that. You're still there. You guys do that, so you're team 2. No, you said T?
H.
Huh?
H.
There is an H, yes there is.
That was an H.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that was an H? Okay, sorry, I apologize. It's already up here, T's here. What else?
R, oh, sorry.
R's here?
T,
T is already there.
D.
D, yes, there's a D. Ding, 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 ding,
I'd like to
ding.
solve.
Everything else is a vowel.
I'd like to solve.
Solve it, everybody.
Shared meaning.
Exactly right. This is the fill in the blank at the top of the page. Communication is shared meaning. The problem we have in barbershops, just like the problem we have in business, we communicate by broadcasting, don't we? We send it out in the airways. We've communicated. No. Communication only exists when you understand the message the same way I intend it. That is when communication exists, Aaron. That's what we're talking about. That's what shared meaning is. I have shared the thought. You have understood the thought the way I intended it. We have communicated. How many of you have put any thought like that into the communications you've given? Of course, the answer is very, very few. Hand down. I know you think about it all the time. All right. What is effective communication? Effective communication is communication with purpose. Every leadership communication should answer one of these basic questions, which is fill in the blanks. What? When? How? Who? What if? These are leadership communications. These are what the leaders are attempting to answer in everything that you do when you stand in front of the chorus. The leader, when the director is giving direction, here's the problem. It's in the bass section, and I would like them to fix this. Or, and ultimately, what if all the basses were able to make the sound forward of their tone instead of behind their tone? What if? Now, there are ways that leaders, effective leaders, can vary these things, but it all rolls around this. Take a look at the bottom of the page. The two questions that are down there are in bold for a very specific reason. When we as leaders communicate, we should always be able to answer these questions for ourselves. What is the purpose of the communication? Why are we doing this? Secondly, what do we really want to convey? What I'm saying is there should be no off-the-cuff communication. When you have something important to impart to your group, write it down, for God's sake. When you write it down, there is something magical that happens. The physical act of writing it down and typing it out. All of a sudden, your thoughts become clearer. You don't have to pick up the paper and read it to people. But what you have done is you have now ordered your thoughts so that you now have a roadmap of when you speak. You have the key thoughts. Well, the guys in my course can say, I always walk up with a little cheat sheet. I have a couple of points I want to make. Glance down. The other, at our Wednesday night thing, I didn't have a cheat sheet and I forgot, so I had to go back up. And it was just, leaders make mistakes. The leader has to be clear about what the purpose is, and it has to be clear about what they are trying to convey. Let me say it one more time, it's too important. No off-the-cuff remarks. That's how we get in trouble. What you do not understand, you truly do not understand the impact what you say has on the group that what you are a part of. If the leader, if Nancy, even if Nancy wrinkled her eyebrow, everybody says, oh my God, what happened? If she's standing out for the course, it goes like that. Uh-oh, something was wrong right about here. You know, so everybody knows. We communicate, by the way, what percentage of our communication are the words we use? What percentage? 10%. What percentage? So 7 to 10%. Well established psychological studies tell us that 7 to 10% of the words we use, 35%, give or take, is tone. 55% is body language. So if I say to you, I'm really happy to be here tonight, I'm giving you a classic mixed message. My words are welcoming, my tone is threatening, my body language is totally insincere and uncertain. And you are free to take whatever message you want. But if I walk out and say, guys, I've got great news. We have been invited to go to Harrogate, England. We have this this congruence between the message, the vocal, the visual, and everything else, all right? Which is what we're going for in our performances with our audiences, right? So we need to model it as leaders. Ooh, you like that connection there? Isn't that kind of cool? All right, so, moving on. We're going to talk about a big issue right now. Communication problems. Are you causing them? I want you to focus on this picture. This was taken in 2014, right out here at the front. Notice this rather slightly overweight white-haired guy here, chatting with a group of people from Bellevue. And I want you to see what's going on here. 3 people are interested in leaning in. One person is, and one person is turned, 2 people are turned away. I have no idea what I was saying, but looking at that picture, was I causing a communication problem? Because I was not making it clear what was going on. Take a look with me at page number 7. Look at the bolding in the second paragraph. Now, as a leader, it may be difficult to accept the rejection. Not everybody's going to love what you say, Nancy. Some people will outright reject it or throw it away. But the most common reason for misunderstanding is how you personally speak. What you say, how you say it, or when you say it. How many times have you as a leader been saying something and somebody pops up and wants to go off on a totally different tangent? What you do at that moment in time can set the tone for many relationships. Now, I'm not talking about that now. Please leave me alone. Or, thank you, let me come back to you in a couple of moments. Same message, delivered differently. I'm not talking to you now, leave me alone, can turn off a whole group of people, right? There are no off-the-cuff communications. They lead to, the fill-in, by the way, is misunderstanding. Misunderstanding of intent, misunderstanding of fact, misunderstanding of lots of different things. Does this make sense to you? Okay, cool. So if you want to make sure your message is understood, there are 3 things you need. Your message needs to be simple. Keep your message as simple as possible. We are adults, we are human beings, we like to overcomplicate things. We really do. Oh, by the way, this, oh, and this, and this, and this in your message, Christy. But what's more important, if you want to get the point across to Erin, give her one thing to think about and move on, and then come back and give her a different thing in a different conversation. One thing at a time. Keep your message simple. Number 2, consistency. Why I say write it out is what it's doing is you're organizing your thoughts so you can stay on message. I'm going to sing Dante's praises. Dante has done a great deal of work on the internet. I think most of you in the room know that Northwest Sound is going to international competition in a couple of weeks in Salt Lake City. Dante has been working on, spending hundreds of hours, working on how to hone the message so it gets across in the simplest way and it's consistent. He's been doing it time after time after time. And the very best coaches we have do this, right? Third, repeat your message. Anybody here a marketer? Person who's in marketing? Trained in marketing? I was the national business coach for StageHomes.com, and I taught people around the country how to set up their businesses. And one of the things I had to do was help them learn how to market. So I did some research on marketing. How many times does it take a company's, the mention of a company's name for you to recognize the company exists? 6, 21. 21 mentions of a company's name. And that does nothing about the product they offer. Nothing. Larry, this is for you. When you're up on social media, it takes 21 mentions of the company, of the chorus's name before people can recognize the place exists. Now to find out what they offer, it's another 21 times. No less a person than Jack Welch himself. Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE, and he was thought of when he retired in 2001 as the best manager in America. He said simplicity, consistency, repetition, that's how you get it through. We have to take the very best that is offered by the business world in order to communicate with the people who work and live with us. Make sense? Questions? So far so good? Good. Turn the page and let's talk about the most difficult part of communication. Here we are. It's the same as whether you're in a quartet or you're in front of a chapter, it's listening. That's the most difficult part of this whole thing. Have you ever met somebody and you talk to them and 30 seconds later you've forgotten their name? It happens to me all the time. You know why? It's because I've been listening at the wrong level. Turn the page. The wrong level, the levels of listening are these. Level number 1 is pretend listening. You get out of your car and you start walking and you're full of all the things you need to do, and some chatterbox starts talking to you, and chatter. You're being polite. You're really not listening, you're being polite. That is pretend listening. How about number 2, which is selective listening? This is listening with one ear. During the warm-up, you still have got a whole bunch of stuff going on in your head about things you need to do tonight, and you're only half listening to the director or the warm-up person because you know what's going to happen. So you're listening with one ear, and your mind is going inside. You know why that is? We speak at 150 to 175 words per minute, but inside the noggin, we're processing at 650 words per minute. We can have a complete conversation going on inside our head. At the same time, Nancy and the directors are trying to get us to do something that is emotional and important. And that's the fundamental reason why we as coachees often fail to fully understand what it is the person is saying. How many of you have had the joyous experience of being on a writer's when a really great, highly paid, highly touted coach steps up in front? You had that experience? When that happens, we shift to active listening. We are listening with both ears. All of a sudden, it makes sense to us. Now, to help you understand, yes ma'am?
Is passive listening all the same as pretend listening then?
Passive listening, yeah. Pretend, yeah. Passive listening is very another name for it. Absolutely. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go back and I want you to pair up. On the previous page, there's an exercise that I want to share with you. One of the more powerful exercises that we've got, we have. I want you to pair up quickly. If you came in with a partner, would you please not work with that person? I want you to basically turn around if you would. Oh, you're an extra person here. Would you work with David? And would you work back here? The two of you work together too? Not you two. We got one extra person. Would you work with Wes over here? Everybody got a pair? Okay. And a hush falls over the room. Please sit down. And a hush falls over the room. Everybody there? You got a person? Everybody's there? Okay. I want everybody there. Now, between the two of you, I want you to determine who has the earliest birth date in the room. By that I mean January to February. Who has the earliest birth date in the year? Paul, you got a partner? Okay. Everybody got it? All right. Here's the deal. Okay. Now everybody knows what's going on. Here it is. Here is the problem. The issue is when and where to have the chorus party. The first person to speak is the person who has the earliest birth date in the year. This person wants to have it indoors at night. When I say go, by the way, this exercise takes 30 seconds. That's all it takes. It is the only, in all the teaching I do, I don't do role play. This is the only thing that approaches role play. The only one. You'll understand what's going on in a minute. The first person to speak wants to have it indoors at night. He or she is able to use any argumentation you can think of to convince the other person to have it indoors at night. When I say the word shift at 30 seconds, the other person is then going to give his or her reason for having it outdoors during the day. In 30 seconds, I will say the word shift. Again, the first person then can reiterate his or her points. Everybody clear about what we're doing? It's where to have the company party. First person indoors, second person outdoors. Go. Shift. Whoops. My fault. I forgot to give you a basic of life. I'm sorry. When I say the word shift, the first words out of your mouth need to be yeah, but. Yeah, but, and then go on. Everybody with me now? So second person, say yeah, but, and go.
Yeah, but.
Shift. Other person say yeah, but, and go. Time. Is anyone convinced of the other person's argument? Imagine my surprise. Okay. All right, now, all right. Same pairs, different scenario. The person who spoke second last time speaks first this time. The issue is qualification recordings. The first person to speak wants no qualification recordings ever. The second person to speak wants qualification recordings now.
What is a qualification?
You are not allowed to be on our risers unless you can qualify, record yourself and qualify. The music team is going to pass you. Yes or no? That's a qualification recording. Okay. For our purposes in this room, that's what a qualification recording is. Now, I'll stop. The only difference between the two scenarios is I no longer want to say yeah, but. I want the first person to say his or her reason why you don't ever want these, and the second person is going to start out with the words yes and then give all the reasons about why you should have them. I will say the word shift. The first person then says yes and goes on. Are we clear? Mm-hmm. Go. 30 seconds.
Everybody else advisors have
Shift. Shift.
responsible.
Time. Okay, everybody back to your seats now. Time. Everybody back to your seats now. Okay. Was there a difference? And we're back.
Excellent.
And we're back. Was there a difference between the two scenarios?
Yeah.
Why? What was different? Yeah, why? You acknowledge their feelings. What else? Dante?
Felt like we were collaborating.
You were collaborating.
The word "and" encourages compromise.
It encourages compromise. No, every single person in this room did something differently. You all did it. Yes.
You don't feel shut down.
You don't feel shut down. These are all feelings and outputs. Ready?
You listen better.
You listen differently. You listen differently. When I had you say, yeah, but you were selective listening. I was watching Erin. She had, Nancy was flapping her. She was sort of listening. And when Nancy's mouth closed and Erin's mouth opened, she gave her the truth. I mean, every word, but she had worked it up. But when I shifted you to yes and, I moved you down to active listening. You couldn't think in advance what you wanted to say. You had to wait until they were done. What happened in every instance in active listening was this. Yes and pause, because you had to marshal your thoughts. Nobody had thought what they were going to say. That's the difference between active and passive. So, Hickman, how do you do this? Well, you do it this way. Active listening, in your book on page number 10, I say focus on the speaker. Resist the temptation to interrupt. Try to understand where the speaker's coming from. Position, look for nonverbal cues, and more importantly, follow the A's. Here they are. You ready for these are the villains. Ask a question. Absorb what was said. Ask a question. Absorb what was said. Ask a question. You get the point? Where up here does it say open your yap and offer your opinion? If you're going to listen, listen. Which means you have to be willing to put your ego in your pocket. It's not about you. If I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to listen to you. Has anybody in this room ever truly been actively listened to? I remember the exact moment in time when my first boss after I left the U.S. Navy had to go listen. It blew my mind. I mean, my God, I wanted to carry this guy's books home from school or something. Nobody had ever listened to me. The closest that ever happened was when I was dating my wife, and we had deep, meaningful relationships, but we were focused on conversations. And over 50 years, this conversation became in other rooms, you know. But that's the way it worked. Active listening. Absorb what you hear. Ask a question based on what you hear. Absorb what you hear. Ask a question based on what you hear. Does this make sense to you? Cool. All right, moving on. Skill number 3, starting on page number 11, is the ability to flex. And this is the ability to flex your communications. Everybody in this room has a communication style. There are lots and lots of tools that you can use to assess communication. But the problem with most of those is that those tools require the other person to have used the same tool, so you have a common understanding. What I want to share with you now is a tool that does not require that. Using your own personal knowledge, you can do something with this. But first, we want to find you on here. North to south is assertiveness. East to west is expressiveness. By expressiveness, I mean your ability to use the language. More language, more words, less words, like that. So if you are high in assertiveness and low in expressiveness, you are what is known as a direct communicator. You want the who, the what, the why, the when, the where, the how. You are really good at taking charge and telling people what to do. What you're not so good at is listening. If you are high on assertiveness and high on expressiveness, you're what is known as a, by the way, a good example of a direct communicator is Rudy Giuliani. Very good, okay? Now, a spirited communicator is high and high. A spirited communicator is bold, outgoing, energetic, and fun. They're great at lighting up a room. They're great at kicking off projects. They're crappy at long-range planning and follow-through. Think of Bill Clinton. Think of Bill Clinton. I'm not making a political statement. Bill Clinton is a spirited communicator. When he speaks in front of a group, people say, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Okay? Now, if you are low on assertiveness and high expressiveness, you're what is known as a considerate communicator. You are a person who listens with sensitivity and tact. You can hear what is actually not being said because you are listening so intently. You are a person who tends to go for the diplomatic solution. Think Jimmy Carter. And just in case you think this is a bad thing, in 1978, this considerate communicator achieved something that no one before or since has ever been able to do. He got Menachem Begin of Israel and Anwar Sadat of Egypt together at Camp David, and he brokered the Camp David Accords, personally. Anybody ever read them? By the way, Sadat and Begin got the Nobel Peace Prize the next year. It's a statement of the things upon which they disagree. That's all it is. It's a statement of things upon which they disagree. That's it. But it took a considerate communicator to overcome the distrust to make that happen. Now, if you're a low on assertiveness and low on expressiveness, you are known as a systematic communicator. A systematic communicator is one for whom objectivity and accuracy is paramount. This is a person who's really good at long-range planning and follow-through, not so good at kicking off teams, not so good at raising the level of energy in the room. Do you see yourself up there? You find yourself up there? Many of you will straddle a couple of these. Now, think about the group that you are currently in. Find that one person who pisses you off. They walk in a room and you, that one person. Now put them up there. I got $50 right here that says they're your diametric opposite. The issue is not that they're bad people. They communicate differently than you, which is why we are doing this. What's your job as a leader? Yes, ma'am?
Can you clarify what the direct?
Direct, the person wants the answers to who, what, why, when, where, and how. They're good at taking charge, good at pushing things through. They're not necessarily so good at listening. As the considerate person is all good at listening, but can't take charge. Man?
You answered exactly my question with that statement.
Okay, good. Right, so they're all opposites, right? And I lost where I was going. Hang on a second. No, got that.
Changing styles.
Flexing your style, exactly right. So I want you to think of that person who pisses you off in the room. They are your diametric opposite. As leaders, thank you, Larry, you put it right back on track. As leaders, if we want to get our point across, we are the ones who have to get to flex our style. If I want Nancy to fully understand what I'm saying, whose job is it to make sure that happens? Mine. If I'm talking to the chorus, I've got to make sure that they understand what I'm saying, and I have to flex my style in order for that to happen. Does that make sense? You're looking like a little questionable.
Well, I'm just asking if you're changing to direct that to adjust to everybody's inner style one time.
When you work, no, that's not possible. What you do is you find a happy medium. What you can do is if you're giving an important message, you can give it in different styles. If you're giving a really important message, like when I have a chapter meeting, I'm in listening mode. I'm in a considerate mode. I will kick off a course thing. I'll be inspirited, and then I'll shift. I'll come in. If I'm having something important, I say, guys, we really need to focus on this. We need to get this stuff done by this time. But most of the time when I'm having a meeting, I'm listening because I'm asking questions. Okay. So I shift my style depending on what the need is at the moment. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, if you're working one-on-one with somebody, you need to be able to shift your style in relation to them. Does it make sense? Okay. All right, now we're going into the very last skill, the skill of the ability to get stuff done. Now there are a couple of things here I want you to think about. These skills are so fundamental we don't even think about it, which is why they're here. Number one, think before you act. Number two, ask appropriate questions and listen carefully. And yes, we are going to talk about what appropriate questions are and how to ask them. I'll get to there. Number four, shift your mindset. And last but not least, set the right expectations. We will talk about all of these. I know you're writing it down, so I'm not going to wait for a second so everybody gets caught up.
Or you cheat, make sure I'm right.
I like you cheat.
Actually, it's not cheating, it's using the tools which I have access to.
Wonderful. Everybody got it? Everybody got the stuff? All right. Now, so think before you act. Really, everything I want you to know is on page number 12 at the bottom of the page. I want you to look at the very first thing here. The first and most important element in getting stuff done is to think before you act. And this is so fundamental, nobody gives it a thought, which is why it's here. We literally leap in. How many times have you really, when something you've done, and you leap in and start doing things, you say, oh, that's not it, and you start doing something else. You ever do that? Happens to me all the time. You know, I'm an action-oriented guy. I want to get stuff done. You know, my first bosses in the Navy say, start moving, get something done. What do I do? Just do it. This is, okay, now we'll adjust as you go along. Okay, I had to learn to think before I act. We don't want to throw stuff up on the wall and see what works and hang on. We're working with volunteers. We want to tell them, give them the benefit of having thought it out before you. Make sense? This goes hand in hand with no off-the-cuff communication. Okay, the second point is ask appropriate questions. When a problem comes up in the course, you know, what's your job? To solve it, right? Wrong. Your job is not to solve the problem. Your job is to ensure the problem is solved. I want to say this again. It is not your job to solve the problem. It is your job to ensure the problem is solved. It's a mind shift. You don't have to do it yourself. What you have to do is get things done that way. In all the districts, all the choruses that I have been in over 39 years, I learned one very important thing. It is the leader's job to ask questions. It says here, because if the leader doesn't ask questions, no one else will. And it got really quiet in the room just then, which is fine. This is a thinking point. If you don't ask the right question, nobody will ask the right question. And what happens when nobody asks a question? Stuff goes wrong. Stuff doesn't get done. Chapters wither and die. Are you with me? Okay. Now, why don't leaders ask questions? It's a real simple problem. It's one we all share. Ego. We wouldn't be in this room if we didn't have well-developed, well-deserved egos. But I want you to understand, here's a leadership technique. Take your ego and put it in your pocket. Because it's not about you, it's about them. If you have a thought about what you want or what you need, take that thought and throw it away. The question is, what do they want? What do they need? That's what's driving this. Now, who's in charge in your course? Real simple question. Who's in charge in your course? No, don't point at me. There's a very simple answer. The person who asked the last question is the person who's in charge. That's the last fill-in on the page. Have you ever wondered why meetings go down rabbit holes and don't get stuff done? It's because the person who's in charge does not control who's asking the last question. The one thing you can do in front of the, if somebody asks a question when you're in front of the course or doing something with them, and say, great question, we're not ready to do that one right now, we'll give it another time, and go back to, why not do this? You be the person who asked the last question. Does that make sense to you? Okay, cool. All right, so, leadership questions. Turn the page. We are talking about appropriate questions. Now, there are some fill-in-the-blanks on here, but I love this part. How would you feel, Nancy, if the director or a leader came up to you and said, why don't you know your music? What's your problem? Don't you know better than that? And how many of us have heard these questions in our barbershop lives? Yeah, we have, either directly or indirectly. We have seen it or overheard it. You're trying to figure out who these people are, or is looking at these are all pictures from previous Harmony colleges. So these are closed-ended questions, questions that make the recipient defensive, make the recipient a person who is it's the feeling put upon. So they create the very situation you're trying to avoid. So what you want are some questions that are open-ended questions. Here are 3 questions. These questions are gold. Question number 1, what's been going well? Question number 2, what's not been going well? Question number 3, what could be done better? I want you to know 2 things. The tense. This is third person impersonal language. It is not first person. What are you doing well? What could you do better? Because that can create defensiveness. Third person, by the way, works. Positive. The second thing to note is positive, negative, change. These questions are so important that I want us to practice them. Would you please pair up with the same person you were with before? Sorry, Matt's got to go back. Here's the deal. And don't anybody do anything until I give you all of the instructions. I'm going to ask you to ask each other these questions, and your answers are in relation what's going well in the group of the barbershop group of which you're a part. That's the context, okay? So you ask this question, the person answers, then the person who asks the question asks a follow-up question based on what you heard. Then, when you've asked that follow-up question, you go to the transition question. So what's not been going well in your chapter, your chorus? That person answers, you ask a follow-up question based on that, so what could be done better? Here's the trick. If you are the person asking the question, I prohibit you from sharing an experience. I prohibit you from telling, oh, that reminds me of a time. All you are allowed to do is to ask questions, listen to the answers, ask questions, listen to the answers. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'll ask you to turn around and we'll play the roles again. This is important. It's one of the most important things we do in the course. So please turn to the person you were working with before, if you would, and ask the questions. Yeah. Time. Yes. Ask these questions. Do not change these questions. I'm giving you a tool that you can use. The set of 3 questions is the tool. Ask this question. Ask the following question. Ask this question. Ask the following question. Okay? Because I overheard a couple of questions about that. Go. All right, shift. If you have not yet shifted, make sure the other person starts asking questions now.
So what's been going
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, and go back. You can get back to that. Now, this is always the hardest place to recapture the room because the conversations are so good. How did it work? Was it interesting?
Yeah.
I want to tell you what I observed in the room, and I will tell you I've been teaching this technique for about 23 years. And in every room it's exactly the same thing. As soon as the first person asked the follow-on question, the person being asked leaned in. Every single one of you leaned in. You know why? Because another human being was actually listening to what you were saying. Do you realize how exciting that is? And how rare it is? You want your kids to be listen to them. They're great kids. The people in our course are like that. They say, oh my God, you don't even listen to me. Can I have your kids? Okay. This is the single most powerful leadership tool that I teach. If you literally use these questions in your chorus, it changes the character of your chorus. Dante was a board member at large last year, and I taught him these questions to use. What was the response you got from the guys when you used them?
I'm not board member at large anymore, but they still come up and just tell me things.
It's because this is establishing a relationship. When David is talking to me and I lean in like this, David and I are establishing a relationship. I'm not a, I love you, man, kind of relationship. But it's a relationship, and people begin to remember these things. You got it? Have I hit it hard enough? Yes, ma'am.
So can you paint a picture of context a little bit more for me?
Sure.
In terms of Is this a conversation that you would be sitting in front of your choir and you'd be asking them,
This is a one-on-one conversation.
It's a one-on-one.
This is a one-on-one
Okay.
conversation.
Okay.
You can have it with any other individual. This is not, so you can ask in general terms. You can ask these questions in general terms because they're open-ended, but you're not going to get the same relationship building effect that you will with a one-on-one.
Mhm.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, yes ma'am.
Our chorus did this last year and this year right after contest. Just a general email was sent out with basically these questions in it. And everybody answered to the president, and then the president brought kind of the consensus to the management team and to the chorus at large. And with those answers, we set our goals for the coming year.
They're gold. These questions really make it possible for us to purpose. Larry?
I just want to reinforce that. Those 3 questions are the core of Microsoft's performance review mag.
Excellent. Very
That's
good.
literally.
I did not know that. I'm glad to know that. So
That's why I'm mentioning it.
Microsoft never lets me in the door. They have their own edition. All right, moving on. So how do you ask questions? Yes, there's a technique to asking questions. Are you ready for this? This is fill in the blank. Number 1, ask one question at a time. We have a real problem. If Nancy does not answer me immediately, I ask her another question, or I change the question. Ask one question at a time, and then pause at the end of the question. Here's a news flash for you. Not everybody thinks at the speed at which you speak. How many people like to think of themselves as extroverts? A couple of people in the room? Wouldn't it be nice, Carrie, if all these other people would just shut up and get to the point, which we know they're going to get to eventually anyway? That's the problem we have. So what we have to do is we have to pause. We have to pause at the end of the question. Now, the third one is this one. Listen carefully. The problem that we have in the U.S. and Canada is we do not like silence. We don't like silence so much that we will fill up the air with words. We will change the question. We will blow past this. We'll never give a chance. So the person is confused and doesn't know what to say. Okay. Number 4, ask follow-up questions based on what you heard. When you ask a question, and the question is related to something the person just said, that is the beginning of a relationship. Real simple. Last but not least, your mother was right. Say thank you. Saying thank you has tremendous value. My wife and I were together 51 years before she died, and we had a household, and my daughters, who are now in their 40s, would come home, and one of her friends said, "I've never heard thank you so much in my life as in your house." My mother and my wife's mother told us both the same thing. Say thank you for the little things. And when you say thank you for folding laundry, thank you for setting the table, thank you for this, all of a sudden it's a norm. And it's a norm within our chapter. We say thank you for lots of things. It's just a norm. Now, if you want the secret to the whole course, it's right here. How to listen effectively, how to really get things done. Listen carefully and shut up. I was a member of the National Speakers Association, and I had an after-dinner speech called "The Greatest Leadership Secret in the World." Shut up. Now, we have 5 minutes left in our time, and I want to cover the last 2 points. They're going to go very, very quickly. This is on page number 16. Shifting your mindset. How to really get things done. Shift your mindset.
There is no 16, no.
I'm just taking what you get. Shift your mindset. As a chapter or a course leader, I'm going to ask this again. What's your job as a chapter or course leader? I want you to walk out of here with a thought. What's your job?
Your job is to ensure that things get done.
Yeah, exactly right. Your job is to get the job done. Yes, that's it. Yes?
Ask the right questions.
Well, your job, that's how you do it. But your job is to, the fill in blank is to get the job done. You don't have to do it yourself. You have to get the job done. That's the bottom line. Now, given all that we do, how do you do this? It's really simple. This fill in the blanks, ask questions, listen to the answer. Here's what's going on. With all the barbershopping experience that I had, all the life experience that I had, in my 70s, I've been in 41 countries. I've led teams from 2 to over 500. I've got all this stuff. I don't know the answers to every question. Because the sum total of knowledge in the world is doubling less than every 18 months. It's impossible for anybody to know the question. So what I want you to do is I want you to shift your mindset, and what this really means, assume you do not know the answer. When you ask the question and you assume that you do not know the answer and you really listen, oh my God, do things come to you. If your mouth is shut, I used to tell my little girls when they were growing up, there's a little piece of bone that's attached to your jaw. And when your jaw opens, that piece of bone slides across your eardrums, you can't hear. So if you're listening to me like this, Carlos, you're not listening. You're thinking about what you want to say to me, right? That's what this is about. The mind shift. The mind shift is assume we don't know the answers. Even if you know what you would like to have done based on your experience and your knowledge. Not necessarily, it's not the only way to skin the cat. As Dante has learned in front of our chorus, we have our own way of thinking things, right? Okay, got it. All right, moving on. The last thing, how to get things really done, set the right expectation. I'm going to ask you a question I want you to think about. What is your expectation for your course? What is your expectation for the team, the group that you lead right now? Does this really matter? Let me tell you something. In 1965, there was a study done in the San Francisco City school system in which in primary school, and several teachers were told that some students had been pre-tested and had shown tremendous aptitude and were shown to be intellectual late bloomers. By the end of the year, they would outstrip all of their classmates. Well, that was exactly true. At the end of the year, each of these students was two grade levels above. But the students had been chosen at random. The only difference was in the mind of the teacher. The only difference was there. Now this study was replicated in a welding school for the adult hardcore unemployed. Before beginning the class, the teacher was told that a couple of guys had shown a tremendous aptitude for welding. At the end of the class, they scored higher on standardized tests. Their welds were judged of greater quality, and they were absent less. But again, the only difference was in the mind of the leader. Has anybody here heard of Pygmalion?
Oh, yeah.
Who's Pygmalion? Tell me who Pygmalion is.
My Fair Lady.
My Fair Lady is the modern adaptation of Pygmalion. Pygmalion came from ancient Greek mythology, and he was a sculptor. Pygmalion decided to sculpt the statue of the perfect woman. He labored for years on this statue that he named the Galatea. And he was so successful that he fell desperately in love with this creation. And he was pining away, literally starving himself to death at the feet of Galatea, until Athena, the goddess of love, took pity on him and brought Galatea to life, and they lived happily ever after. That's the myth. Now, in the modern world, George Bernard Shaw, wrote a play called Pygmalion, in which he talked about a little Cockney flower girl by the name of Eliza Doolittle, who was transformed into a duchess by a speech professor, Professor Henry Higgins. That play became the book for My Fair Lady. Okay? Now, the Pygmalion effect is the effect that I just described to you in the San Francisco City school system and the hardcore welding unemployed. And here's how it works. The Pygmalion effect is you form an expectation. You then, in some way, either overtly or covertly, communicate that expectation to the group or the person. They then respond to that expectation completely without thought. And then magically, the original expectation becomes true. This is called the Pygmalion effect. You have an expectation, you communicate it in some way, they respond to it. The problem is, it goes the other way as well. You ever see somebody, Nessie, you just think, this person's just not going to make it. And they don't. You know why? Because people rise to the level of expectation or lower the level of expectation. I have personal experience with this. In the 1970s, after the Vietnam War, the U.S. Congress decided to impose a social experiment on the U.S. military. And that was exactly what was in the legislation, the social experiment. The general cutoff of IQ for entry into the armed forces has been for many years about 100. By congressional mandate, as an experiment, they lowered it to 90 to see what if this particular group of people could find gainful employment. I mean, nobody, just knuckle draggers go in the military anyway. That was the thought process of the Congress in the middle 70s. So this group were called mental group 4s. It's in the legislation. And by congressional mandate, the cohort, meaning the group of them, were enlisted in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and Marines, and they went through a 4-year hitch. And it was spectacularly unsuccessful because they did not have the mental capacity to pick up the basic skills necessary to carry a gun, do anything other than sweep the deck. When I became chief engineer of USS Ponchatoula, which was an oiler in Pearl Harbor in 1978, I had one of these guys in my engine room. I didn't know it. They were operating so unsafely that when I pulled them all into a room and I said, I'm taking away all your qualifications to operate the equipment. We're going to be in a 6-month repair period, and at the end of that time, I will retrain you to requalify. And anybody who qualifies on all of the equipment in any space can stand top watch. I have to understand, most of you have no idea what that means. I'm explaining it. The Navy day is broken up into 4-hour days. Midnight to 4 a.m. is called the mid-watch. 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. is the morning watch. 8 a.m. to noon is the foreman watch, and like that. And the people who are actually operating the equipment, awake and operating the equipment and driving the ship, are called watch standards. In the engineering world, where each hole, you have steam generation equipment and machinery, that propulsive equipment in a different room, they have various watch standards, and the person in charge is called top watch. So I said, anybody who qualifies on all the equipment can stand top watch. I didn't think nothing of it until the room cleared and this kid walked up to me. Today he would be called a high-performing Down syndrome. Very high forehead, sloped back, sort of like this. He said, Mr. Hickman, did you mean what you said? If I qualify on all the equipment, I can stand top watch. He said, yeah. Didn't think anything of it. That night, as it was in my entire naval career, it was my job to go around and make sure everything was safely put away and ready for the next day's work. So I go down into the fire room where the boilers are, and I go all the way down 5 stories, and down just above the keel, there is this massive pump that pumps water in high pressure into our steam drum, into the boiler. And here's this kid sitting in front of this thing, cross-legged, with the schematics of the pump laid out, and a 3rd grade reading education. Literally, he says, turn, valve, right. He put his hand on the valve. He was teaching himself the pump. The other engineers laughed at him, but he was there night after night after night and qualified on the pump. Moved to a different institute. 1 calendar year after I had that meeting, that kid with an IQ of 92 qualified as top watch. He was the best top watch we had. What the Pygmalion effect does is give the expectation to the kid and they can rise to it. What is the expectation you have for your chorus? I ask you again. In my chorus, I am as subtle as a brick. My expectation, yeah, they're saying yes, yes. My expectation is that everybody in the chorus does something more than just stand there and sing. That is my expectation. I asked how I got the riser set up. I said, guys, we need help. And guys came out of the woodwork to help. We downloaded the job survey available from the Untitled Chapter initiative. Did a job survey of everybody who's got all these skills. We found videographer skills. We found voiceover skills. We're using them now. But we basically said, does everybody in the chorus do this? No. But I've got an 85% participation rate, which I think is pretty good. What is your expectation of your chorus? Only reason you can't answer that question is you haven't thought through the question. That's the only reason. Make sense? Okay. All right. I have been flapping my gum for a little over 90 minutes. I know there must be at least 1 or 2 questions in the room. I'll be glad to handle them if you got. If not, let's we'll go over and we'll have lunch together and we can chat about it then. We'll be back in this room at 1 o'clock when Nancy and Ed Gibbs will join me up here, and we will talk about the things. Has it been useful to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Question, Nancy.
So the Peter McBride program
Yes.
that you referred to
Yes.
is on the Evergreen.
It's on the Evergreen website.
Do the ladies have access?
I don't really, I will find that out. I will ask that question.
Okay.
It's a basic there's a basic chapter officer course, and then there's the president's course. They're just about finished with the secretary's course. Then they're going to do this. Now, those are very specific, but the chapter president and the leadership course, they're going to do that. I don't know why not. Perfect. That's perfect. Yes, there is. There's a password that's assigned to the chapter, to each chapter. So let's find out. Let's ask Peter. Anything else? Yes, sir. Me? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, on your ability to
Yep.
get stuff done, what did I miss here?
Think before you act, ask appropriate questions, listen carefully to the answer. Hang on a second, double check. I'm pretty sure, listen carefully to the answer. Yeah, listen carefully.
Thank you.
There was a word.
Yeah, hang on a second. Hang on, just right here.
Yeah, I just missed the third one.
Say thank you.
There you go. Shift your mindset, that's the one you're looking for.
So I got them all. It's
You got
the
it?
third one.
Okay. Folks, this has been a ball for me. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time, and we'll see you back here at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Yeah, right. Literally.